In the fiery chaos of August 1814, Washington, D.C. burned. The British Army, triumphant and ruthless, set the Capitol, the White House, and the Treasury ablaze. Flames roared into the night sky, casting red uniforms in a demonic glow. Private Thomas Ashton, a young American militiaman, stood paralyzed as his nation's heart ignited. Civilians screamed through smoke-choked streets while British jeers echoed off smoldering walls. Lieutenant Colonel George Talbot watched with cold satisfaction. America's rebellion, it seemed, had been crushed. But then the air shifted. Smoke grew heavy, the wind stilled. A sudden chill swept the city. Clouds rolled in dark, furious, and unnatural. British looters froze. American survivors held their breath. Then thunder cracked, and a storm exploded over the capital. Rain lashed the city. Winds roared with hurricane force. Fires died instantly. Tents shredded. Cannons toppled. Soldiers, redcoat and patriot, were thrown into chaos. The storm spared no one. British formations collapsed. American defenders clung to rubble. Both sides were reduced to survival. Nature became the great equalizer, and just as suddenly as they arrived, the British fled, their conquest drowned in a single night. Washington had not been saved by gun or general, but by a stormer, furious act of nature that refused to let the Republic burn. At dawn, Washington was wreckage. Streets became rivers of ash and mud. Homes gutted. Monuments shattered. The air reeked of smoke and sea salt. British troops, battered and stunned, slunk away. Redcoats clung like burial shrouds. American soldiers emerged from ruin, drenched and weary, yet resolute. But in the ashes of defeat, something fierce ignited. Civilians became the backbone of resistance. Women smuggled maps beneath skirts and passed intelligence through coded quilts. Children darted through alleys as fearless couriers. Blacksmiths forged weapons under the cover of darkness. The storm hadn't ended. The war it had transformed it into a movement of the people. Word of the divine storm raced through taverns, printed broadsheets and soldiers' songs. Patriotism surged like wildfire. The British, once symbols of invincibility, now looked human vulnerable. The psychological tide shifted. No longer fearful, Americans attacked with guerrilla tactics and ruthless precision, striking at supply lines and ambushing from forests. Even among British ranks, whispers of fear spread. Officers watched the skies, dreading another wrathful strike from nature. Morale eroded. Confidence withered. What had been a show of imperial dominance now reeked of failure. Their polished boots and proud banners meant little when the very heavens seemed to side with the rebels. And so, in the wake of fire and storm, a new identity was forged. Washington, bloodied but unbroken, became a symbol of indomitable spirit. The storm did more than extinguish flames, it reignited a nation's fight. The war continued, but America no longer stood as a trembling experiment. It stood as a storm-forged nation, defiant, unified, and ready to seize its destiny. This was not just survival, this was resurrection through the wrath of nature itself. Survivors rose from the mire with scorched hands and blistered feet, eyes alight with purpose. Bakers became medics, teachers became messengers. What once divided them, class, creed, origin, was washed away in rain and blood. They were no longer civilians, they were architects of resistance. Every brick laid, every meal shared, became defiance in motion. On the outskirts of the city, militias rallied with newfound fury, sharpened by survival and bonded by loss. They trained relentlessly under makeshift banners of liberty. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for in unshakable resolve. Skirmishes erupted along country roads, each ambush a thunderclap that echoed the storm's legacy. The British, rattled and weary, were plagued not just by American resistance, but by the storm's shadow. Every gust of wind raised anxiety. Every grey cloud summoned dread. The memory of lightning splitting the sky, of redcoats hurled like ragdolls, haunted their sleep. Their invasion had unleashed a tempest, both meteorological and revolutionary. Meanwhile, in the heart of the capital, leaders gathered under tattered canvas tents, planning their next move. They no longer spoke of mere defense, they plotted resurgence. Intelligence flowed faster than musket balls. Morale surged. The city's pulse beat stronger. Washington had been struck down, but not destroyed. It breathed, still ragged, but resilient, and from the ruins, artists painted, poets wrote, and preachers roared. The storm became a symbol etched into every sermon, every song, every whispered bedtime tale. Children would grow up not just remembering the fire, but the rain that saved them. And in those stories, America's soul was reborn. This was no longer just a city. It was a rallying cry. Every shattered window, every charred stone screamed. Resistance? The British may have lit the fires, but the storm had doused them with destiny. From the heavens to the mud-caked boots of the ragged fighters, a message echoed: you cannot kill a nation forged by storm. Washington's redemption was not a miracle. It was a reckoning, a convergence of fury, faith, and fire. And though the war raged on, one thing had become certain. The storm had not just changed the weather, it had changed the war. And in its wake, a stronger, storm-born America stood ready to rise. What rose from Washington's ashes was more than just recovery, it was reinvention. The people didn't rebuild what was lost, they reimagined it. Stronger fortifications, new alliances, a deeper, more defiant belief in the American cause. Every repaired home, every re-raised flag, was a declaration to the world. The storm hadn't broken them. It had baptized them in resolve. If this storm-forged story stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more epic tales from forgotten history. Your support helps keep these stories alive and the fire of the past burning bright.